Hi, Chase Shirk with my two partners in crime here, Chris Smith and Cole McCoy. And
what's up?
Advertised. We are excited about today's podcast. A little bit of a mix-up, a little mashup for you guys. We've got the living legend, the proprietor of North Star Insurance Advisors, Mr. Ramiz Hakin, on with us. We are super excited about having Ramiz on. As most of you have been listening in on the conference calls each morning, we've been talking about options to continue to make business happen. And one of those that's come up is dialing for dollars, being able to build a business, continuing to cover lives and help people out each and every day, but doing it with a different method. So who better than the king of telesales to come on with us? Ramiz, we appreciate you jumping on with us, man.
Hey, man, thanks for the introduction. I wasn't sure if you were talking about me or not, but good to be here. Thank you.
Well, we're going to just jump right into it because I know Chris has a list of questions. Cole dying to jump in with some content. We want to address the 800-pound gorilla that's kind of not just in the room, but in our lives. Right now, with everything going on in the world, you and your company, you guys are doing big, big things. Our specialty is and always has been face-to-face. I know for me, selfishly, I wanted to ask the question to you, kind of get your thoughts. If you were speaking to a face-to-face agent, how would you go about recommending to them, mentoring them? What would your words of wisdom to be with where we're at right now in the world we live in?
I think the number one thing, what I'm finding online is many people are trying to dabble in both. So they're calling on their leads, trying to set an appointment, and if the appointment is not successful, then they're transitioning into a telesales presentation. And so I can't stress enough how much I feel that is a recipe for disaster. If you're going to commit to face-to-face, keep doing face-to-face and overcome the coronavirus objection, or do telesales and lead with that and sell. Because if you're pivoting that early on in the presentation, it's just going to set you up to not look very good.
That's awesome. That's pretty powerful. And to kind of go along with that, you're talking about from the onset, the way you approach that lead. Don't go in, one foot in, one foot out, let's see what they say. You go in from the get-go, from the way you approach that lead, whether you're going to go see them face-to-face or you're going to go see them and just try and sell over the phone.
I mean, it's just like if you have an agent that sells both Medicare and final expense. Ask them how they enjoy running 2 final expense appointments, then a Medicare, then a final expense, then a Medicare, then an annuity. You just don't have the momentum to be able to sustain that kind of business model. So make the decision, what are you going to do, and then follow through with that, not, going back and forth. It's confusing for you, and it's even more confusing for the customers as well.
Chris, I know you're dying to jump in. Go ahead.
No, I think that's totally true, though, because during Medicare season, I was running Medicare leads and final expense leads, and I had a lot of leads, and my appointment setter wanted to feast on all of them and set all of them in the same day, and I literally had to say, this has to be a final expense day. That has to be a Medicare day. It's a totally different mindset, and I can't flip between 12 and 1 o'clock and keep the same momentum going. And I think it would be fair to say if you can't sell them over the phone, it's just like if you couldn't set the appointment over the phone, door knock them in a few weeks. They won't remember the difference.
Yeah, there's something about the rhythm. I think it's kind of the rhythm that you're getting to. You can't get into the rhythm of your conversation, your rapport building, the entire thing, if you don't know, if you're trying to dance there to some extent. Cole, I know you had some things you wanted to throw out to Ramiz. Anything you want to start with?
No, man, I just want to say thanks. I'm mostly here selfishly to take some notes and learn a thing or two, so hopefully I can shut up enough to let you do that.
Cool.
But no, I just appreciate you being here, man. I'm excited for what you have. But, do what you do, man. If I have something to share, I won't hesitate to chime in for sure.
So we'll kind of going off of that first question, what would your recommendation be? How do you I'm not asking you to give the script away. I know you got that script that everybody talks about. When you do make the decision as an agent that you are going to stay in today, we're going to make some sales over the phone. What's the mental approach to that for you, that you would teach somebody coming from the field dealing with this epidemic?
I think right now it's probably the easiest time to get into telesales. I would have said just weeks ago that telesales is much more difficult than face-to-face. That is true, except now it is the easiest that it's ever been. And so if you're moving or transitioning from face-to-face and getting into telesales, then again, my biggest word of advice is going to be just commit to your business strategy and follow through with that and give it time. You know, every one of us when we started as a face-to-face agent sucked so bad, like really bad. Like Chase, you were probably the worst.
Shut up!
And then, but the point is like you got to stick through it. And so your face-to-face skills will not translate to telesales accomplishments. It's starting over day one, and everything that you learned face-to-face, none of it is going to be relevant over the phone. Matter of fact, many times it's the exact opposite. What works face-to-face does not work well over the telephone. It's going to take time for you to learn those things, but you have to be patient and stick with it. The moment that you are trying to move into a different product line or a different way of selling, or one day you're going to do a screen share, one day you're going to do a video share, one day you're going to do, just find the strategy that works, which in my opinion is going to be just straight voice, only voice signature, and just keep plowing through. You'll start to notice things click. Keep doing a lot of the things that are working right and begin adjusting things that aren't working well for you.
Gotcha. And so what would you, if you had a couple of keys to give somebody, what would you recommend in terms of finding that consistent lead flow? What lead are you using? I know you had been hit up a lot on social media about this. And I found your advice to be something I didn't think you would say, but I don't want to spoil it. What would your advice be for that lead type? For those that are looking to jump into warm transfers, jump into live transfer, what are your thoughts on that?
You know, I'm trying to think which advice I gave because I've been asked so many questions by different people. But I'm a huge advocate of the inbound call. I think that helps compress time and gets you into the most presentations without having to find people who are interested. The problem is that most of the inbound calls that are being driven right now are offshore. I'm not an advocate for offshore marketing. I think that is just a lawsuit waiting to happen. As someone who has been threatened with many lawsuits, believe me, just stay away from it. And my name is Ramiz Hakin, so you know I have no bias against anybody. I'm just being honest with you, all right? So stick like as far away from offshore stuff as you can. I think digital marketing right now has been, it's a newer concept, but it gives us all a level playing field. So other than budget, everybody has the same opportunity. And there are ways to create inbound traffic specifically to your phone by using digital marketing. And if you're not one that knows how to do that stuff, then get with a digital marketing agency that knows how to do that stuff and begin investing on the inbound side. Right now, on Facebook specifically, you can capture the data. In other words, they see the ad, they respond to the ad, you capture the data, and then when they hit submit, it then gives them the option to call now for whatever reason. Free quote or for free information or whatever. Use that function and get as many inbound calls as you possibly can.
Go ahead, Chris. I know you're dying to jump in.
I just think it kind of play off that real well is I think a lot of face-to-face agents are attempting to apply a face-to-face routine to telesales, and they need some expectations of what that actually looks like. Like, what is a good start time? What is a good end time? How many hours should they spend dialing on the phone? How many calls should they expect to make before they talk to somebody and have a complete presentation? And I personally witnessed it. I see people that were on their feet working 8 hours on the phones, but I think people could just expect to sit down, call the first lead like they knock a door, and they need to have different expectations for what a telesales day might look like.
Yeah. So here's the expectation. How long is your typical workday, including drive time? So just because you're doing 4 presentations a day or 5 and each one's 30 minutes, so that means you've spent 2.5 hours working, that's not the case in telesales. You got to include that drive time to your appointments, your no-shows, your door knocks, all that stuff. So expect to put in a solid 8 hours of work a day. Telesales is not a shortcut at all. It's just a way to compress time and make more sales. So what we find is many agents get a good spurt in sales, so they'll have a good half a day and close down 2 or 3 deals and think, I should lay low now, I'm good for the day. Man, as good as a half a day you just had, you can have even a worse half a day the next day. So consistency and continuing to work the process full time, regardless of previous success or how much money you have in your bank account. Those are the worst things you can think of by gauging future work ethic based off of previous success or the deposits in your bank account. You've got to put in a full 40 hours.
Absolutely. What do you think some of the issues are that agents have when they start trying to call? Like, what are the biggest pitfalls that you noticed, especially training agents into telesales? What do people do wrong very often in the beginning?
They confuse upfront concerns or questions for objections. So when you call on a lead and the customer says, hey, listen, I just want you to know I'm on a fixed or limited income, many agents pivot directly to the close and look at budget. That is not the answer. To me, that's a complaint. Of course, they're on a fixed income. They're making $700 a month. So they're just letting me know that, and I should not run down that rabbit trail with them. I need to continue on in my presentation. Positioning yourself as the subject matter expert and guiding them through an experience over the phone is the way to convert people into a sale, not every time they have a question or a concern that I need to address that with them right now. Obviously, they're on a fixed income. Like, so are the face-to-face people you see. So you don't try to find you haven't earned their respect yet to be able to find what fits in their budget. Follow the process, and then at the end, if that concern comes up again, you've earned the right to now overcome an objection at the end of the call.
Mm-hmm. Would you be able to just give us 60 seconds on what the concept of call control is without revealing all the secret sauce? I think it's easy to control the stage when you're in a face-to-face appointment, where I sit, how I speak, what I say, and what's around me.
Yeah.
But when you don't have that face-to-face experience, how can an agent who's used to controlling a face-to-face appointment establish call control in a telesales presentation?
I can tell you visited our office before, Chris, because you're using my internal jargon. So alpha call control is the art of shifting someone's mind into a different direction so that you can help them through this experience. Much like with your children, if your kids are approaching you and they want ice cream really, really bad and there's no means to getting them ice cream, you'll use call control and say something like, well, honey, listen, let's go play with this ball right now. We'll talk about that later. And more times than not, ice cream's going to come up again, but right now we have them preoccupied with the ball. Not that our clients are children, but that same technique works the same way. So, hey, I'm on a fixed income. I just want you to know I'm not going to buy anything today because my budget is tight. Well, Chris, thanks for sharing that with me. That's okay. This plan is designed specifically for people on a fixed income. Now, as I was saying, my name is, and bam, I'm right back into my presentation. So you're acknowledging what they're saying. You're responding to it in a nice way, saying, listen, I get it, but don't worry about that. And then we're just pivoting back into our script.
Interesting. I think that's kind of like when we teach face-to-face objections, is not everything needs to be met head on. We simply divert the objection, and it's the same concept. One of the things I noticed observing the operation is a lot of the objections and comments are the same. The clientele is the same, but the implementation is completely different.
Correct. And every customer you talk to, whether it's face-to-face or over the phone, has a certain expectation. Their expectation is you're going to hard close them. They're afraid and they're scared. So it's our job as salespeople to tactfully bring down their guard, which you have to be way better at that over the phone, but bring down their guard, enter into their world and become more of an advocate on their behalf, as opposed to a salesperson who's just going to slam them into a policy. And that's why before this pandemic, telesales got a bad rap, because there was heavy hitters that were selling a bunch of business the wrong way and then got eaten up with chargebacks. Listen, the clientele we're talking to, you just can't do that with them either face-to-face or over the phone. But specifically over the phone, it's just much more of an art. than face-to-face, where a lot of the unknowns are much more visible. Like you can walk into a house and you look trustworthy, you're polite, they see you seem nice. Over the phone, I really have to invest in my presentation so that my client gets those same feelings from me.
And that was one of the things I wanted to kind of address was the verbal, nonverbal. I know that that's a big difference between telesales and field force, and you did a great job kind of breaking it down and going into that. One of the things that I've continued to hear about on social media and online about telesales that you're kind of killing that myth of is that it's wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Whereas field force, face-to-face, you're spending all this time on rapport building. The way I'm hearing you, and it doesn't surprise me with the way you do things, you guys still spend a lot of time on your rapport, that relationship. Before we get into the business side of it, you're building that trust still.
You have to. And again, in St. Louis, we've had 2 large companies try to mimic what we've done with very deep pockets, both of whom within 12 months dumped millions and then shut down their shop. Because it's telesales is not the advantage to telesales is not having to drive. It is not that my presentation is shorter. That is not the advantage. And if anything, the presentation is longer. So I'm able to maximize my output because I can get inbound calls, so I'm not driving to appointments or knocking on doors, okay? And I can service my clients very, very quickly over the telephone. So the advantage is only the drive time. It's not anything else. If anything else, the odds are stacked against you. You just got to be that much better of a salesperson.
Mm-hmm. I think I was curious on that one because I know the answer to these 2 questions, but what would you say the average call time is? Because our average presentation time is about 45 to 60 minutes on a one-to-one.
Yep.
How much time should an agent expect to spend in a telesales presentation?
45 to 60 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And we like to pre-qualify before we even get headlong into the presentation. Is that a similar technique that an agent should take on the phone, pre-qualifying the prospect before they get down all the way to closing?
When you say pre-qualifying, what do you mean by that specifically?
Like, do they have a bank account? Is there, are they terminally ill? Questions like that would keep them from buying.
Absolutely. And so, we have our own pre-qualifiers that do that so that we don't waste our time with people that we simply cannot sell. But if you are an agent, you have got to pre-qualify. But pre-qualifying does not mean you pre-qualify interest level. That's why I wanted clarification on that, because some agents are asking, well, why did you fill out this card, or what was your motivating factor, or why are you shopping around today? Those are okay questions later on in the presentation, but specifically for telesales, you're looking for, can I write them? Okay, great, I can write them. So now let's invest in the relationship and then close them on a deal later.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm hearing so far, I just want to make sure that I'm clarifying this in simpleton terms, because I like to keep things extremely simple. So the first thing you're saying is, and correct me if I'm wrong, I just want to make sure I'm hearing this right, system over self. So because you're having a bad day or a great day, don't change anything. Keep pushing forward. Be in other words, a slave to your schedule. Sometimes that means you're going to write a bunch of premiums. Sometimes that means you're going to get your butt kicked, but you're running your system over and staying consistent with that no matter what, even if outside circumstances suggest one thing or another. The second thing I'm hearing you say is selling, I guess face-to-face, how I would articulate, is selling from their side of the table. I think you used the word advocate. Holding their hand through a process, not coming across and being abrasive. You're walking them through gently and getting I'm assuming there are tie downs within your presentation that you're using to just get them one step closer to the sale. Is that process pretty similar over the phone as well, where I guess the way I would articulate it is 5 or 6 small closes throughout the sale to when you're going and getting that banking information? Is that process similar? I just gave you a lot to respond to, so I'll shut up now. But those are the things that are coming to mind. I don't want to miss those key points.
Yeah, I mean, there are tie downs. We ask a lot of questions to get yes answers through the process. The other one which is an advantage that we have as opposed to face-to-face, is there's also takeaway selling. So it's much more easier to do takeaway selling over the phone than it is face-to-face. And so based off of a number of criteria, let's talk specifically like health, on their health. When you're in the home, I can see it being a much more clunky way of selling, where over the phone, I can say something like, well, because that you have diabetes and you are insulin dependent and the doctor has increased your units of insulin over time, I'm going to do my best to get you qualified, but I'm not exactly sure if I'm going to be able to do that. We could say that over the phone, where face-to-face, sometimes that can sound a bit weird because you already got the information there. And the other thing about the system I want to respond to is it's important to understand that you're running a business. And I think that's where most agents fail in general. They get in the mindset of a self-employed person instead of the mindset of being a business owner. And so the way we train our agents here is that if you went into business and you hired your first employee and you put that employee to work for 40 hours, whatever expectation you set for that employee, whatever you would want from them before you fired them for not following your rules, whatever that was, you need to do that better. So just because your employee did a good job for half a day, do you expect that employee to leave early? Or just because that employee showed up early so many times and then 4 days in a row they're late, would you be okay with that? Of course not. So be better than that. And we feel like that's a really low threshold that a business owner should follow. So yes, create the system and then follow through with it, much like you would expect an hourly waged employee on your payroll to do. If you can't do that, you're already at business, you know?
I think that's an interesting point, because that was my number 6 question, is general business advice. Because a lot of us, and I remember being new to the business, treated it more like a hobby or a part-time gig, or it just something was a way to make money. And we didn't look at it in the business sense. And it's hard to look at it in the business sense when you're, working out of your home office or no office, or just a bag you carry and you put in your apartment. But you obviously have an office the size of a mini mall and see it a lot differently. So maybe what are some general business practices that we can take into our field, where when the next virus comes, agents aren't panicked and, bailing on situations because they didn't have enough money to make it 1 week?
Well, I think the number one thing in general is to stick to some kind of systematic lead program. I think the most annoying thing that I could hear, and I don't even sell leads, by the way, but what I hear is when an agent has a bad week and then buys less leads the next week because they had a bad week. It's like, I don't work for y'all, so I can say, and you're probably thinking this, but idiot, you need to spend more time on leads, okay? Like, if there's more leads, not less leads. So that's how a business is run, So businesses follow a system, and the system dictates the activity. So you need X amount of leads for X amount of appointments, then that happens every week, regardless of your feelings or what your previous week looked like. That is a business. Now, the self-employed person wakes up unemployed every day because they have no system. They're just wanderers of this world trying to rub two dimes together. Then they fail. Then they blame the system. Well, there wasn't a system. It was you, doofus. Okay? So that's my business. That's the one thing that I find where most agents fail. Is it's finding a system, yes, executing the system, yes, but when the times get hard, follow the system still. Don't change it because you don't feel like it or because the money is tight. That's when you need to lean into your problem and double down on yourself, not retract and try to hunker down. That's a very dangerous way to run a business.
One thing that you said a minute ago that I think kind of needs to – there's so much good nuggets that are going to come out of this podcast for a lot of field agents. Like a good movie, you're going to need to watch it over and over, and you'll be able to pick something new up. But the moment when you said the driving is that's the only thing we're substituting here, the driving. I think for a field agent, correct me if I'm wrong, that time you would spend driving to go knock on the next door, you need to be spending dialing to find that next conversation. In terms of activity level, what would you recommend if somebody's right now, and this is totally different, we're talking about, oil and water, somebody who takes 30 leads a week in direct mail, they can still make magic happen over the phone. They don't need to drop direct mail, go find the cheapest telemarketing lead. They just need to stick with that system is what you're telling us.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with direct mail. I've always stayed away from direct mail, to be honest with you, because I don't want to compete against the independent agents. Well, if you're an independent agent and you have a Rolodex of carriers to write with, direct mail is still a viable source, no doubt about it. You're going, especially at the beginning though, you're going to notice that your cost per acquisition is going to be higher. You need to expect that and don't give up because of that. Just keep investing, invest more when possible, and finesse the process and just follow that system. You know how to make sales. You're just converting that skill virtually. And that's going to require some investment for you to do that. And don't be afraid of that.
It just may take a little bit more than you're normally accustomed to compared to, that normal set. You may have to add an extra 5 or 10 or something like that. Just raise that activity level just a little bit possibly.
Yeah, or supplement. Like if you got 30 really good leads coming in, perfect. Now put in some cheaper Facebook or social media leads so that you can have a lot of activity. Because I'll be honest with you, I'm thinking 30 outbound calls. You'll get that. I mean, half of them aren't going to answer. Of the half that do answer, half of those people aren't going to don't have the time or the patience to talk to you today. So you're only really getting like 7 good calls in. And then of that 7, some of them aren't going to qualify. So really you're talking about 4 presentations. That's going to be tight. You're going to need more leads than that. So supplementing that with some other cheaper lead source is really good, but not giving up the bread and butter that's sustained you for this long.
I love it. I love it. And one of the things I wanted to bring up, and I know Chris, you can go ahead first, buddy, and then I'll get back to mine in a second.
Should an independent agent consider simplifying their processes? Maybe not pulling out 6 different carriers, maybe not considering every replacement scenario. And since this is probably a short-term situation for them, should they consider, refining the process a little bit simpler?
I think a face-to-face agent should refine it, make it simpler. I cannot stress to anyone this fake notion that customers want the cheapest plan, so we need to shop around and find. I think that is the stupidest thing that anyone ever came up with. And for sure, it was a marketer that never sold face-to-face that came up with it. All right? Customers are not shopping insurance. Agents are the one shopping the insurance. So get the process boiled down in the system. Listen, I lead and sell and only have one carrier. And it is more expensive than 90% of what is out there. And our quality of business is higher than any other insurance company seeing face-to-face, with the exception of the really, really cheap ones, okay? Other than that, there's no one, it's not the price. It's the service, it's the relationships, it's the follow-up. That's what differentiates you from the competition, not the price. That is the last thing that I care about when I look at who the best carrier is. That's the last thing I look at. I mean, and y'all are familiar with what we sell. It's not cheap. It shouldn't be cheap. If you're working with the best agent in the country, it's going to come at a cost. But when it's time to take care of your family, or when it's time to take care of you, you can count on that, as opposed to Joe Schmo down there that's selling some cheap fraternal that's can't even pay in advance because they don't have the cash flow for it. They ain't gonna take care of you. You know what I'm saying? They're not gonna. All right, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. You're preaching to the choir, my man. I'm loving every second of this. Because we get on public formats, we get lambasted for even bringing up the carriers that we're speaking of. But the reality is, using cheap companies is probably the most expensive thing you can do. I think you reference this to your leads, to leads in general on Facebook. The most expensive lead that you can buy is the cheapest one. Well, I think that's the same thing with the carriers. Because anyway, I'll leave it at that. But I'm the choir singing hallelujah right now. So appreciate that, man.
Yeah. I think it's easy to strike a balance between that. But in this type of situation, I kind of look at it as a triage situation. you're at home, you need to make money, you were dumb enough not to save your money or not wise enough, sorry about that, but you have to sell on the phone now. You can't go out. Time to make it real simple. When we were triaged as a paramedic, it wasn't, this, that, or the other thing. It's, are you alive? Are you dead? Are you going over there? Are we sitting over here? So here's the product you're going to sell over the phone. Here's the presentation you're going to give. Go to work with it. You're not, just keep it very simple and straightforward. And the beauty of your operation is it's literally one big machine. A lead comes in the front door, it comes out the back door as a sale, and it's manicured on the back by customer service.
Yeah.
So just take that process, implement it into your personal business, and keep things simple. I think that's what we'd all agree on.
And to your point, Chris, I would encourage agents to really take this time to reflect their entire business philosophy. When I got in the insurance business, I could tell very quickly that I did not want to do this for the rest of my life, but the money was really, really good. So what I started doing was hiring people to help take off some of the responsibilities that I did not enjoy doing, okay? I didn't enjoy calling my leads. I did not enjoy servicing my customers that were calling in over like every little thing, like a pre-note. They'd say, well, you took 2 cents from me. Well, ma'am, we deposited 2 cents and then we took 2 cents back. Like I was fielding those phone calls. So as an agent, if you are the one who is buying the leads, setting the appointments, driving, presenting, rescheduling, door knocking, servicing, like you're spending a lot of your time not selling in that instance. And so I would encourage agents, if that's you, whether it's telesales or face-to-face, find ways to really build a true business where you're extracting some of those low-level activities, paying someone hourly to handle those for you so that you can then maximize your time in presentations and end up making more money by paying someone to do some of the grunt work that you don't like doing in the first place.
I love that. And that kind of goes to what I was going to ask next. Chris, by the way, the flow has been great on the questions. I'm not gonna lie. We'll get back to that later. But I'm super excited about this next one because I don't know if you guys do this. I truly don't know in your business if you guys do this, so I have to ask this. For our people, one thing that's great this time of the year is you don't want to play on the fear, on the emotion of what's taking place, but working your book of business and seeing if Betty told you before 10 is good now, but some things may be changing. What's your thoughts and your opinion on working your book over the phone?
Working a book that you've sold or like a book of leads?
Your book that you've already sold and like maybe doing some increasing policies and stuff like that.
For sure, 100%. And we do that here. Now, those I'll tell you just how much we believe that you should be selling and not doing some of this stuff is those sales are so easy that we actually pay someone, a couple of people at the office to call on behalf of our agent's book of business. That hourly wage person actually makes the sale, and then we assign 100% of the commissions back to the writing agent. That's how lucrative that is. So again, I would say, yes, that's a really good place to make sales. I would just say, once you really build a business, hire someone to do that for you because it's that you already got their social, you already have banking, you already have everything you need to make this. That's the hard part, So calling and saying, hey, how you feeling during the coronavirus? Oh, by the way, for $30 extra a month, you can get this much more coverage. Yes or no? Okay, yes. Write the deal and give the money back to the business owner,
Love it. I had to ask that to see if we believe there's value from the face-to-face perspective, but we also believed it from the telesale side, and who better to ask. So I promised, 30 minutes with you, and I'd love to keep you for another hour. Guys, anything else that we haven't hit Ramiz with?
I got one more.
So many things.
Besides the fact that we need a customer service department, Chase, I got one more for you. Biggest legal pitfalls, TCPA, buying leads from a year ago that someone handed to you for free. What are the easiest ways to get sued dabbling in telesales?
The easiest way, number one, is using offshore marketing. That's the easiest way. As a matter of fact, just put that in your budget. Just this, every third sale you make, just put that in a savings account because you're going to give it to a lawyer anyways. So if you're going to use offshore marketing, just get ready to be sued. That's the biggest pitfall you're going to fall into. The second one is calling on leads after 90 days that have not been scrubbed against national and state do not call lists. There's something called an existing business relationship. That's either the inception of their interest or them being a client. Based on the inception of their interest, you have 90 days to close down that deal. After that, you have to scrub against national and state do not call list. And technically, you have to have your own individual SANS numbers. You can't be using other corporation number to be scrubbing your data. That's technically speaking. But regardless of the point, calling after 90 days without it being scrubbed is another one. Those are the two biggest and easiest ways. Be careful not to call cell phones with an automated dialer. Don't text people without permission. Always present yourself with your name and the company you represent within the first 30 seconds of the conversation. And here's why I say this, especially now. There are literally people who are professional litigators, and they have like 6 or 7 Vonage lines in their homes waiting for you to call, waiting for them to trip you up so they can sue you, your upline, your IMO, and your carrier. I've seen it 1,000 times. Thank God, knock on wood, it hadn't fallen me yet, but we've been threatened before many times, and we've always come back squeaky clean because all of our calls are recorded, and I have an auditing department and a compliance department that watches that stuff. That'll put you out of business no matter how big you are. It just one call can do that, let alone getting the carrier involved. They just terminate your contract because you ain't writing that much business anyway. They don't want to deal with you in the first place. But that's beside the point. Okay, so that is the biggest pitfall for telesales is compliance. You're not going to deal with that as much face to face, but it's huge.
So to clarify one thing, because we're seeing some things on social media right now that are relevant to this point. Getting a bunch of old free leads is probably a really bad idea if they're more than 90 days old.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, if you're scrubbing against the do not call list, then it's perfectly fine. No doubt about it. But if it's within 90 days, you don't have to scrub. After 90 days, if you're calling on that data, I'll tell you how strict our compliance is. We use a program called the name just slipped me. But when someone goes to our lead page, we record them physically, like we record their action clicking on things and filling out their name, and we capture the IP and the date and time, and that gets filed indefinitely. So that when somebody comes to me and says, I'm on the do not call list, do not call me, when that happens, because it happens weekly, we go in our archives, I pull that MP4 of them physically doing it, along with a third-party verification with IP and date, and then I'm squeaky clean because it's going to happen. I cannot tell you how many letters I get here every week from someone trying to catch me doing something, but we're squeaky clean on that stuff. So if you're going to buy a boatload of B leads, I think that's a great idea, but scrub them. And B leads for me is just old leads.
Yes.
Scrub them against the do not call. If you're not doing that, you're putting from the agent to the carrier all in jeopardy, and someone's going to pay the bill every time.
Yeah, and that's a powerful point, Cole. I'm glad that you brought that up because we've seen that posted. I just spent $250,000 and we're going to help these. But also, if you're on LinkedIn, you're probably getting blown up on a regular basis with somebody like Ramiz was saying, trying to offer you, leads that are generated offshore. I can tell you from experience, we've seen, hey, just try these out, test it out, and then if something comes up, they bail. They're gone. You'll probably never hear from them again. Or if you do hear from them, they're not helping with any legal fees. They're not even in the country. So that's a powerful point. Don't get sucked into I can get you a $10, $9, $12 telemarketing lead to help you out during this crisis. It's all over social media right now. Don't fall into that trap. Ramiz, go ahead.
I was going to say, I have a really good friend that actually owned, this is someone that I know in the United States, owned a call center overseas, had people on payroll, had someone move out there and manage this call center that spoke the language, and even that person with that much control got really, really messed up in a bad situation. So again, just stay as far away as you possibly can.
Career litigators out there, like Ramiz was saying, it's real. It's not just him. It's real. We've seen it. South Carolina's got a big one. That guy's all over the place. But Ramiz, I know, number one, appreciate you being able to spend some time with us today. Chris, nerding out right now. Me, nerding out. And then Cole, he was nerding out as soon as we told him you were going to be on. So
I did a dance, not kidding. fat guy dance is not pretty. I won't do it, but I was very excited. So we appreciate it.
I love it. We want to plug 8% Nation, man. I had the pleasure of coming out and watching in Dallas. 8% Nation this next go-around is going to be in Las Vegas. You are a speaker. Tell us a little about what's going on.
Yeah, so, my good friend Cody Askins puts on this conference every year. It is phenomenal. The networking, the collaboration, ideas that pop up, just a different way of looking at things. It is an absolute wonderful, wonderful conference. And so to date, it's still on. It's not until July, so we have plenty of time for all this hysteria to wind down a bit. But if you're available, it's in Vegas, so you're going to go anyways. Why not go to a conference and go to Vegas? And if you go to 8percentnation.com, all those tickets are available for purchase there.
Awesome. I look forward to it. I know Chris and Cole and I were talking about possibly trying to get out there, check it out. And if you're a final expense agent, you can go and learn about some other markets. I'm going to give Landon a shout out right now. I nerded out. I loved Landon's part of the last 8% Nation. He's just sitting there giving out all of these secrets and all of these tips when most people are packaging those up and they're selling them. He was super informative. The podcast, the insurance podcast guys from Alabama, obviously you killed it. Cody obviously killed it. It was a great show overall and a great event, and look forward to seeing you in Vegas, my man.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I just want to extend my gratitude to Equita. You guys have always been a class act. Anytime I've ever needed something, anytime I've called, I've been able to get answers. Just advice, just us working together, even though neither one of us are really profiting off the other, just being friends and neighbors. And it's like we own the Mercedes dealership and you guys own the Beamer dealership, and we're right next to each other. We can still be friends and serve a different market. So you guys that are agents working for these fellas here, I couldn't tell you anywhere else that's going to be better taking care of you.
You're a good man. You're one of the most humble gentlemen in your type of position, running a shop as big as yours that I've ever met. And I know these two guys that I do these podcasts with believe the same thing. So we thank
100%.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, man.
All right, so we're going to end the podcast. I appreciate you guys jumping on and joining us. If you are doing this, you are looking to add telesales in, man, who better to listen to? If you have any questions, hit us up in the comments. Feel free to contact us directly, and we'll see you guys all over again next week.
Don't try to fight, nothing you can do. I'm gonna run all over you.